Folks, America is under attack in the truest sense of the word. We've got Democrats in Congress calling on soldiers not to obey the president. We've got lawmakers demonizing our border security agencies as Nazis and terrorists and fascists. We've got people talking about Thanksgiving as Genocide Day. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. They're teaching our children that America is evil, that it's founded on white supremacy and all sorts of other nonsense. And I think a lot of older Americans are tempted to just laugh it all off because it's so stupid, and yet it is, I believe, a very real threat to the continued existence of this beautiful country that God has blessed us with. We have a very special guest joining us today. He's got a book dealing with some of these issues. His name is Michael Finch. He spent almost his whole career in the nonprofit sector, giving of his time and of his energy to defend liberty, to defend our republic. He's worked at the Heartland Institute, a wonderful organization, the Claremont Institute, more recently at the David Horowitz Freedom Center. He is an Air Force veteran. He has a love for our country. Regular speaker, he's a published author. His articles have appeared all over the place, including in Front Page Magazine, American Thinker, American Greatness. He's got 2 books on poetry, Finding Home and Wanderings in Place. And he's got a new book out today called A Time to Stand, The Dire Hour to Defend American Beauty. Michael, welcome to the program. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me on, Alex. I'm very grateful, and it's a real pleasure. Happy Thanksgiving, an early happy Thanksgiving to you and all your listeners. And again, I'm very grateful for you having me on today.
Well, thank you, Michael. So I want to talk about both elements here, the attacks on America and then also the beauty of America that you express so eloquently in your book. Let's start with the attacks. I mean, I gave a few examples of that, but we're seeing it more and more. Even mainstream news networks now denigrate America as if it were some sort of terrible place. I grew up outside the United States. I've lived in 8 countries on 4 continents. I grew up mostly in the third world. So I've seen what the rest of the world looks like. I appreciate the wonders of our precious country, America, but I think a lot of Americans don't. Let's talk about the attacks. Who's doing it? Why are they doing it? What are they saying?
Well, the left is continual. It's continual attacks of America and our history and our republic, and they've been doing this. You know, I worked for David Horowitz for 23 years, who, of course, sadly passed away earlier this year, but David taught us about how the left was instituting a long march through the institutions. The education establishment was number one. So what they're trying to do is denigrate the American history and the American culture in order to create this kind of perfect utopia, this new heaven on earth, which the left is trying to do. They've tried to do that for many times around the world, as you know, Alex, for the last 150 years. In order to do that, you need to destroy and destroy what burned down what happened before. So you have to destroy the history. So America wasn't founded in 1776. It was founded in 1619. It's a slaveocracy. Columbus came to the New World simply to despoil the environment. And it goes on. And this is all part of a plan for the left. In order to, again, you have to lose America's faith in the beauty and the greatness of our history. I have faith in the American people that we're going to fight that. But the left has been very successful. So what we've gotten to over the last 60 years is now our children are being taught the Howard Zinn version of American history. There's nothing to be proud of. We need to be ashamed of this history. And the self-loathing is so destructive. So you're right, though. The older generation kind of said, well, that's what the left does. But it divides us, it fractures us, and it will further balkanize our country when our children no longer are proud of this great country.
Yeah. And one of the things you focus on in the book is the beauty of America, and especially American culture, which I think you ask a lot of people today. There is no American culture. We can only import culture from Somalia or Mexico or, whatever. What is American culture? What's so great about it?
Well, it's aspirational. I think, I've said, I think America's unique. It is aspirational. It is an exceptional nation. You've lived around the world, so you're right. You know what the other world, and there's wonder and beauty in a lot of countries and a lot of parts of the world, but America is special, and there's a period of our history, again, the seed is signing seed, manifest destiny. It was aspirational. America, in a sense, when it was first discovered, was a blank canvas, and I know that there was people here, the Native Americans here before. That's another story for another day. We can study that history. But America painted, wrote, and built a culture based upon the land and based upon the history. It was a new country. You know, if you're Italian or Greek, culture's in your blood. You don't need to really, you can just look around you and you've got 2,500 years of incredible culture. America didn't have that. So we needed to build a culture, a national culture. And that's what the early founders, the early artists, Thomas Jefferson on down, tried to do, is institute kind of a culture that we could unite us and bind us. So what better for the left to do than break that down and get us to where we're no longer proud of that incredible culture, the writing, the painting, the literature, the poetry, the architecture. It really is a stunning and amazing and beautiful culture that Americans are just not as aware of as they should be.
So what do you think we need to do about this, Michael? How do we protect our country? And you talk about this being a dire hour. How much risk are we facing here, and what do we need to do to mitigate that risk?
Well, I think it's, we are at a dire hour, not just for the this rediscovery or the restoration of American culture, but American history and the American Republic themselves. The left is on the march, denigrating the country, destroying this radical transformation. It didn't start with Obama, of course. It started way back in the 60s. And this is what the left wants to do. They do not like America. They hate beauty. They hate American history. And they want to tear it down and build something new. This is why they're overwhelming the system with the open borders, illegal immigration. This is the left's plan. So we need to stand for what is great and what is beautiful in America. We need to teach our children that, reteach ourselves, and continue to fight this leftist onslaught in all aspects, not just politically, not just electing good people to office, but also in fighting back against these attacks on our culture and our history.
And how do we fight back against these attacks, Michael? I mean, I've argued for a long time we've got to address the education of our children. I mean, they need to learn this stuff. But what do you say? How do regular, everyday Americans get involved in this battle to preserve our country?
Well, we kind of re-educate ourselves a little bit about American history. A lot of the things that I've learned about the beauties of American history and culture, I learned after school, and I went to school in the 1970s. But even then, this wokeism, the leftism was creeping in. So we need to re-educate ourselves a little bit, and then we have to teach our children. And then we have to, public schools are a disaster, right? So maybe how that's going to be, that's rolling a boulder up a mountain to try to reform public education. But we need to force the state legislators and local governments and communities to put in programs in these schools that teach American history and not just hand it to leftist professors, but actually have, a Victor Davis Hanson, let's say, run a program at a college and institute these programs. You're probably going to have students flock to these kind of departments. So that's critical. So we can do that. And continue, and thank goodness, President Trump, a couple of times during his 2 terms, has fought back against the culture. He just fired a shot at the Smithsonian Institution a couple months ago, tell them to knock off the wokeism, that we need these institutions like the Smithsonian need to teach the beauty and the greatness of American history. He had an executive order in the first term saying that all federal buildings need to be built along classical lines. In other words, look like the Capitol. But they call that fascist. You mentioned fascism. Everything's fascist. Well, they call that fascist architecture. Well, I'm sorry, the Greeks and Romans built these buildings 2,500 years ago, 2,000 years ago. I don't know what was fascist then. There's nothing fascist now in saying that we want beautiful federal buildings. And again, that helps unite us. Thomas Jefferson felt very strongly that even architecture, look at our state capitals around the country. They're some of the most beautiful buildings in the world. And they were built for a purpose, so citizens could look at that and look at the greatness and the beauty and the aspirations of American culture. We're not doing that anymore. So there's so much we can do. We do have somebody at the bully pulpit. We may not in a few years. I pray that we still do, in Donald Trump and President Trump. So, we have allies, and we have the common sense and the good faith of the American people. Look, we voted for Trump twice. Arguably 3 times, but that's a different discussion for another day. But the fact is, American people want to be proud of their country. We want to recognize America's beauty. We want to be proud of our history and our culture. There's this kind of leftist drive to tear it all down, and you saw that in 2020 with the tearing down of the statues. And it didn't end with Robert E. Lee. Okay, he was a Confederate general. Well, he was also a great American and part of our history. Like it or not, we need to study that. But they wanted to tear down Abraham Lincoln's statue at the end of the day, and he was the great emancipator. So when the left wants it to, they're really good at destruction, Alex, and tearing things down. But their end result of that is over 100 million people died in the 20th century in the pursuit of this perfect world and these utopias. So that's how dire this is. And you can see it creeping in. It is a seductive ideology. It's been there since the Garden of Eden. It'll be there forever. We're never going to win this war, but we have to keep winning battles to fight the left back and fight back their kind of pursuit of this utopia, which will destroy us.
Yeah. Are you optimistic that we will be successful in this?
Yeah, I try to be. We have to be. I mean, it's easy to kind of succumb to the. The left is so good at this, and again, they're so good at destruction. They've destroyed so many great civilizations and cultures in the world over the last 150 years, and just left nothing in their. You look at the Soviet Union, Cuba, communist China. And again, their aim for all of these was destruction of what happened before, destroy the history. So it's easy to succumb to that. But I do have great faith in the American people. Maybe there is kind of an awakening. Maybe the nation is getting ready for another religious great awakening. I don't know. It's impossible to predict. But there's a goodness and a faithfulness and a common sense to the American people that I'm not going to underestimate. I think we need to keep pushing back. And as long as we have some leadership, I do worry about, you worry about elections. I mean, this is a cultural thing. But people in power, Donald Trump could be an ally in this, and the next president could be an ally, or they could be, I mentioned the executive order where Donald Trump said all buildings need to be built along classical lines. It seems like such a minor thing. But with one of Joe Biden's first acts as a new president was he rescinded that executive order before almost any other executive order was pulled back. Well, why would he do that? Why was that important when he's worried about jobs and foreign policy and taxes and healthcare and all those so-called important things? He wanted to tear down because, again, they hate the idea of beauty. They hate the idea of American beauty. They do not want Americans to be proud of what came before us so they can institute something new. So, yeah, it is dire. I remain somewhat optimistic, but obviously, Alex, I worry. But we have people like you and a lot of millions of patriots out there speaking the truth. So, that gives me hope.
Amen. And final word, Michael, how do people get the book, and what do people need to know about it?
It's a series of essays on a number of things, world events and current events and so forth, but it really focuses on American beauty and American culture and our history. It's available on Amazon.com. It's also available at the Freedom Center's website, frontpagemag.com. You can get it at the store there. So I urge people and encourage people to buy it, and if you read it, and you could pick up one or two things that lead you down a path to this rediscovery of American culture, then I've done my work in writing the book, and hopefully it kind of reawakens people. That's a different kind of wokeness. This is a good wokeness. Let's reawaken to the beauty, the grandeur, and the aspirations of this incredible culture and history that we have, and bless it.
Amen. Well, Michael Finch, thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you for writing the book. It's called A Time to Stand, The Dire Hour to Defend American Beauty. We appreciate it, sir. Thank you very much, and I hope we can talk to you again soon.
Thank you, Alex. Thank you again.
Thank you so much. All right, folks, that's all we have time for today on Conversations That Matter. Get over to thenewamerican.com for more. We appreciate you, and God bless you all.